So this video is about Ashtar, the brother of God. What you are seeing here is called the Meshestile, otherwise known as the Moabite stone. I will be reading the translation of the inscriptions on the stone. I am Mesha, the son of Chemosh Yada, the king of Moab from Dibon. My father was king over Moab for 30 years, and I was king after my father. And in Karka I made this high place for Chemosh, because he has delivered me from all kings, and because he has made me look down on all my enemies. Omri was the king of Israel, and he oppressed Moab for many days. For Chemosh was angry with his land, and his son succeeded him. And he said, he too, I will oppress Moab. In my days he did so. But I looked down on him and on his house, and Israel has gone to ruin. Yes, it has gone to ruin forever. Omri had taken possession of the whole land of Medeba, and he lived there in his days, and half the days of his son, 40 years. But Chemosh restored it in my days, and I built Baal-meon, and I made it in it. I made in it a water reservoir, and I built Keraphim. And the men of God lived in the land of Ashtar from ancient times, and the king of Israel built Ashtar for himself, and I fought against the city, and I captured and I killed all the people from the city as a sacrifice for Chemosh and for Moab. And I brought back the fire hearth of his uncle from there, and I hauled it before the face of Chemosh in Keroth. And I made the men of Sharon live there, as well as the men of Maharath. And Chemosh said to me, go, take Nebu from Israel. And I went in the night, and I fought against it from the break of dawn until noon. And I took it, and I killed its whole population, 7,000 male citizens and aliens, female citizens and aliens, and servant girls, where I had put it to the land. Actually, it says, for I had put it to the band of Ashtar Chemosh. And from there I took the vessels of Yahweh, and I hauled, and I hauled them before the face of Chemosh. And the king of Israel had built Jahaz, and he stayed there during his campaigns against me. And Chemosh drove him away before my face, and I took 200 men from Moab, all its division, and I led it up to Jahaz. And I have taken it. Let me rephrase that. And I have taken it in order to add it to Dibon. I have built Karka, the wall of the woods, and the wall of the citadel, and I have built its gates, and I have built its towers. And I have built the house of the king, and I have made a double reservoir for the spring, and the innermost of the city. Now there were no cistern in the innermost of the city in Karka. And I said to all the people, make each one of you a cistern in his house. And I cut out the Moat for Karka by means of prisoners from Israel. I have built Ar, and I made the military road in the Amon. In the Arnon. I have built Beth-Bamath, for it had been destroyed. I have built Bezer, for it lay in ruins. And the men of Dibon stood in battle order for all Dibon. They were in subjection, and I am the king over hundreds in the towns, which I have added to the land. And I have built the house of Medeba, and the house of Diblathim, and the house of Baal-meon, and I brought there the flocks of the land, and Horonim there lived. And Chemosh said to me, go down, fight against Horonim. I went down, and Chemosh restored it in my days. And from there. So that's pretty much it. Now what's interesting about this is this seems to parallel very nicely to 2 Kings chapter 3 verses 21 to 27. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings came up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor and upward and stood in the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. And they said, "This is blood, the kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now therefore Moab did spoil." And when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them, but they went forward, smiting the Moabites, even in their country. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone, and filled it. And they stopped all the wells of water, and felled all the good trees. Only in Kiraseth left these stones thereof. Howbeit the slingers went about it and smote it. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men that drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom, but they could not. Then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, and offered him for a burnt offering on the wall. And there was great indignation against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land. Now, this is in 2 Kings chapter 3, verses 21 to 27. When you look at this, it makes you wonder. It seems that what it's saying here is that God got defeated by another God. Now that's something to think about. Another thing I'd like to mention is that the god called Ashtar is actually the son of El, the ancient Semitic deity, whom is also mentioned in the Canaanite religion. So that's something that that's a great, huge contradiction in the so-called omnipotence claim for the God of Abrahamic religion. And lastly, I'll mention 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 7. Then did no, not 1 Kings chapter 11. Actually, yes, I'll mention that real quick. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. So you can see that Moab's territory is the territory of Chemosh, just as the territory of Yahweh is Israel. If you look in Deuteronomy chapter 42, verses 8 to 9, Yahweh receives Israel from the Most High being the English version of the Hebrew Elion. It could also be pronounced Elion. I recommend checking that out. Lastly, I'm going to mention Judges chapter 1, verse 19. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. So God got defeated by iron chariots too? Wow. So much for omnipotence.